Loud.
Okay, let's get started. Welcome everyone to the 2021 Building Bridges Virtual Showcase, sponsored by the Partnership for Worker Education here at UMass Amherst. I am Lisa Korpieski and I will be your host for this evening. First, we're going to start with a few housekeeping items. This seminar is being recorded, as you just heard, and if you miss any part of this session or would like to forward it to someone who might be interested, there will be a replay of this and all the previous sessions in the showcase on the Building Bridges website and their Facebook page. We will put a link in the chat for you. I recommend you set your view mode to speaker. Please have your video shut off and stay muted during the talks. We encourage you to put your questions and comments in the chat and we'll read it throughout the presentation. First, I would like to thank Lonnie for co-hosting with me and helping me out behind the scenes. It's really, really helpful. And also like to put a huge thank you out to Jacob Carter for organizing the entire Building Bridges program and all of the initiatives happening across campus. We really appreciate all that you do for all of us and your dedication to the program and to all of us participants and artists and everyone. We just really, really appreciate it. But tonight we're going to be joined by jewelry maker Andrew Serra, who comes to us from the finance operations side of Auxiliary Enterprises. Andrew is a self-taught artist and will be sharing his creative journey with us. We will learn how to create jewelry without needing a soldering iron. I know I'm very much looking forward to this. But first, I would like to start the evening out by reading the land acknowledgement. We would like to begin this event by acknowledging that UMass stands on Nonotuck land. We would also like to acknowledge our neighboring Indigenous nations, the Nipmuc and the Wampanoag to the east, the Mohegan and Pequot to the south, the Mohican to the west, and the Abenaki to the north. Building Bridges is committed to honoring this truth and are in the process of designing programming to raise awareness about current issues in our state. Thank you. I'm going to stop screen sharing. And now I'd like to hand it over to Andrew. Andrew?
All right, yeah. So thanks for doing the introduction. My name's Andrew Serra. I'm a self-taught jeweler, and I specialize in doing silver wire wrap jewelry. This is something I've been doing for about 10 years now. I started basically just copying other artists' work. I met some artists through the music culture that I was following, the Grateful Dead, Fish, other jam bands. So over the last 10 years, I've been doing it on and off. It's been a lot of challenging times. Being self-taught, you kind of just have to make it up as you go. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you guys a PowerPoint presentation just to walk you through a process that I've been following for the last couple of months, making some of my more recent line of jewelry. So here we go. So jumping right into it, I'm going to show you guys kind of the progress of where I started and to the point of where I'm at right now. So as you can see on the left of your screen, those are pretty basic wire wrap designs. They're not too aesthetically pleasing. They don't use any special stones or anything like that. They're kind of just rocks that I found either on the ground or in kind of like gift shops. I wasn't even using silver at that time. I was kind of just messing around, seeing what I could do by myself. So that was roughly 2010. Around 2015, I started really taking it serious. I started meeting some artists that could show me a thing or two. I started getting more into how to do this a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, how to make it more practical to wear, how to kind of make it so it didn't snag on your shirt or, you know, scar your skin with wires that stuck out. 2018 was probably one of the bigger turning points. I really hit my stride. I started buckling down and I started studying more jewelry design and coming up with a style all my own. And then if you kind of move towards this year, with the pandemic, I found myself in my studio for hours on end, doing the same thing over and over again and really hammering out the design that I wanted to kind of be my signature style. And on the far right, you can see a display of some jewelry that I've submitted into a shop up in Shelburne Falls. And this is kind of where I'm at right now. So walking through the process of how a piece of jewelry like this comes to be. It really all starts in my workspace. Here's kind of a little bird's eye view of where I'm working most of the time. I have 3 distinct stations. I have a desk where I do all my designing. This is pretty much where I'm doing all my wire wrapping and actually putting the pendants together. This is where I'm doing my photo editing, the marketing on social media. This is where I'm doing accounting for my business to make sure that I'm not running too far in the red. To the right of the screen, kind of cut off, is actually the bench that I do more traditional jewelry work at. So that's soldering, cutting, grinding, shaping the silver, stone setting happens over there, and polishing and finishing up the stone, the pendants. And then on the right, you see this tabletop, and this is where I'm doing photography. That's a light diffusion tent. Because silver is so reflective, you have to make sure that you're not casting any shadows or have any crazy reflections. This is where I'm doing packaging, shipping, and to the right or to the left on that table is a glass top display. And that's where I kind of get things ready for when I'm vending at an event such as either like a venue, a music venue, or at a market. So this is kind of the space that I'm working with. Everything's kind of partitioned off so that it's as neat as it can be, and it flows really nicely. When we start looking into designing jewelry, it really starts organic for me. I tend to put a scribble down on a random piece of paper. At the top of the screen, you can see it's on a fluorescent pink sticky note. That's just something I had in my pocket. I quickly came up with a design, and I thought, yeah, this is something that I need to write down and record for later. And you can kind of see in that top photo, it goes from a rough sketch all the way to what a finished piece is going to look like and what I'm actually going to try to convert into silver. In the middle of the page is my newest design. It started with a swoop on some concentric circles, and over time I started kind of hammering out where each of the piece of metal is going to be. And this is something that I said, you know, over weeks, over months, this is what I want to make a ton of. So I really focused on this really basic design. Once I kind of have that figured out, it really stops being about the design. It really comes down to the numbers of what it takes to build it. So I take tons of notes, and I'm recording the lengths of wire that I'm cutting, the gauges or the thicknesses. I'm figuring out how many of each I'm going to need, and then kind of the pattern of the wire that I'm going to put together to create a finished piece. So once I get a scribble down, it's really all about the numbers and not so much about what it's going to look like in the end. And when I'm doing designing, I'm actually using a lot of math. I figure out how big the gemstone's going to be. If I'm putting it in a circle, I use the height of the gemstone. That's the diameter of my circle. So I need to figure out what the circumference is to figure out how wide I'm going to have to make this circle to encase that gemstone. And a lot of my designs go from circles to swirls. So I actually use what's known as the Fibonacci sequence, which is a string of numbers that creates a very aesthetically pleasing spiral. And this is a spiral that's found all throughout nature, from flowers to hurricanes to galaxies, all kind of use this same ratio, which is 1.618, or also known as the golden ratio. So this is all kind of in the background of my head as I'm designing these pieces of jewelry. And because I don't want to waste materials, I have to calculate everything pretty cleanly. Once I've kind of gotten the numbers down, I then start moving into the medium of silver. So In the top photo, you can see a thicker gauge of wire. That's going to form a lot of the framing. And then the spools of wire are going to be kind of the accents that I add to the framing to give it some depth and give it more detail. And a lot of this involves twisting. So I have a video here. This is kind of just a basic demonstration of what I'm doing. I'm just taking two pieces of wire and I'm trying to get them to stay together without using any heat or solder. So I use some basic knots and a whole lot of twisting, and that twisting is going to cause tension and it's going to keep the metal together. In the video, you're kind of seeing a blown up, larger version of what I'm doing on a very small scale. You can see to the left, it's smaller than a pencil tip. It's some of the smallest wire I can get my hands on. And that's what's going to kind of drive these really fine details in my work. Now, once I have a coil made, I move on to kind of the next step, which I call a barrel. So a barrel is, I took a coil and I'm going to coil that around another piece of metal. Again, just to add another layer of detail to my work. So the coil that I made in the last slide gets wrapped around a thicker piece of wire. I add another piece to kind of close out the seams so that it doesn't look too open. I want it to look very, very solid. And then once I get this barrel, I actually wrap this into a ring. And the cool way that I do this is that those two pieces of metal are actually just free floating on the structure. So I just slide them down onto a loop and it'll actually bend itself into a ring. And you can see the bottom photo is under 15 times magnification. So that's actually like a really small ring that, you know, it's hard to get on camera live. So I wanted to make sure you guys saw all the details. Going along with this ring of coiled metal are the frames that are going to be there to hold the whole thing in shape. This is what's going to hold it to the chain that it's going to sit on. So these are two bits of frame that are going to interlock together. They're going to sit around the coil in such a way that it holds everything pretty snugly. So in this video, I'm taking one of the frames, which is going to be all the way to the far left. That's the one that's going to be to the far right. That's the one that's actually going to be held by the chain. And then I have the ring of coiled metal. It's going to sit in one of my frames. And then this one is going to interlock in. And the way that I've kind of put these together is that they kind of just fit together lock and key. And it holds everything in a really nice shape. And it's nice and aesthetically pleasing. It's based on that Fibonacci spiral. So the human eye kind of views that as a nice shape. Now, when we go back and we see on the right, you can see that there's this shape that's, you know, it's ready to hold the stone, but the stone is going to fall right through the back, or it's going to fall right through the front. So we need to make a prong setting. A lot of typical jewelers are just using 3 or 4 prongs. They're just kind of straight pieces of metal that fold over. I like to bring it into a little bit more detail. So what I end up doing is I build these, again, spirals and flowing forms. I end up building these prongs that are a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to myself. So here's, you know, 3 pieces of metal wrapped together to form a spiral. And then when I get to the end, I don't want it to just kind of be open. I want to build a web to fill in that space. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking the 2 open prongs and I'm just going to wrap the metal around it. I'm going to do it a couple of times, and then I'm going to start alternating in like a zigzag pattern. And what that's going to do is it's going to make this webbing to fill up that space. And, you know, it's all there to hold the stone in, and it adds strength to the pendant as well. So there we go. I go around one of the prongs, and then I'll just reverse the coil and spin it backwards around the other one. And I'll do that, you know, anywhere from 10 to 30 to 40 times, depending on how big the metal is that I'm working with. And then all of these pieces are just completely separate from each other. Nothing is really held together at this point. And it takes a lot of practice, a lot of planning, and just trial and error. And what is actually going to come from all this is I'm going to take all these pieces that I've made so far, and I'm just going to dry fit them together. So there's the two bits of the frame. There's that barrel coil, ring that I made. That's the finished piece of the prongs. You can see that it's got full webbing now, so it looks as it's one solid piece, and that's just going to interlock into one of the frames as well. And at this point, that's decent. It's going to hold the stone kind of well. There's no back to it yet, so this kind of helps me make sure that the stone's going to fit there in place. I have a little bit more framing that's going to be added, again, to fill in the gaps to make sure that it's a nice full looking piece and it's not kind of open. And then there's my gemstone that I'm just going to make sure is the right size, and that the metal is the right shape to kind of hold it together. So that's getting there. It's maybe about 85% done. I've got some more accents that I'm going to add on, especially at the top there. There's two pieces of metal that I'm going to create a web between to kind of fill that in. And all of those pieces of metal have to be held together by wire. There's no soldering at this point. So I'm going to just start doing more wraps, more webbing, and just making sure that everything is interconnected. And then eventually, after maybe an hour or two after the last video, I would be getting to something a little bit more complete, such as this. So this stone is held in place all through tension. There's no solder. It's just going to be kind of locked in there. And that's pretty much a finished piece. The back would be finished up, making sure that the stone doesn't fall backwards out of there. I need to make sure that there's enough metal to cover the stone to make sure nothing will contact it or hit it or crack it. But that's pretty much a finished pendant. Now, even though that looks like it's well and complete, there might have been some scuffs or marring from me using pliers. So I'm going to move over to my bench. I'm going to grab a Dremel. I'm going to use polishing brushes to get any scrapes or scratches off the metal. I'm going to be very careful not to touch the stone at all. I need to wash that to make sure that any oils that came off my hands that might have been collected on the pendant get taken off the piece. I'm going to polish it with a fine cloth to make sure that all the tarnish is gone. And then I'm going to put that in a bag with an anti-tarnishing compound to make sure it doesn't tarnish again while it's being waiting to be sold. From there, I usually move over to the tabletop. I'm taking photos for social media. I have an Instagram, I have a Facebook page that I kind of put all of this information out on. I walk people through these steps regularly so my followers can see what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. I want to build a website. It's kind of in the progress. And I also do graphic design, so I'm always trying to make promo items to give out to my fans and my followers. From there, it's going to move off to distributing it to people. So I work at music venues. I set up a table. I sell my work there. I go to markets. So that's where you can find me in person, kind of selling my stuff, talking with people, sharing my art. I moved into the Shelburne Falls Art Collective or Art Co-op in Shelburne Falls. So that's a retail shop that's displaying my artwork currently. I sell on Etsy under the name AW Serra Designs. And I also take custom orders. So if somebody's looking for a specific stone or a different size pendant, or maybe they even have a design that they want to see in metal, but they can't do it themselves, I'll gladly take on that challenge. And here's just some examples of my work that I've made over the last couple of years. The one in the center is one of my favorite pieces. The crystal in the inside is, it's a Herkimer diamond from New York, upstate New York. I mined that myself over the course of about 3 days. I was in a quarry hammering away to get that kind of crystal out of a huge rock ledge. And then I also kind of have been following this pattern for a number of designs now. So this is some of the, I think I've made about 15 or 16 in this kind of jewelry line that I've done. Yeah, so I can open it up for questions or comments, anything like that.
Thank you, Andrew. That was amazing. I'm speechless. Everybody here that knows me knows that's hard to do. Some of the comments we have, beautiful work. I love this. This is stunning. Amazing, Andrew. There is so much detail. Honestly, I welcome anyone to unmute themselves and ask Andrew your questions directly or give him your comments. You know, I'm just amazed at your process. Like the fact that the detail with the math and the Fibonacci and oh my God, like and then the fact that everything is just kind of put together by tension.
Yes, yeah, that's kind of the thing that most people don't believe, is that it's a little bit of like sorcery, it's a little bit of knot work, basket weaving, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. People think that I cheat and I solder, but I don't. Yeah, thank you.
I'm just blown away. It's amazing. And do you have any advice for selling your stuff at markets and things like that? I'm just curious.
I mean, what I find is really interesting, or is a big thing about being an artist and trying to sell your work, is you're selling your artwork, but you're also kind of selling yourself. So getting out there and meeting people and sharing the passion that you have for your artwork really makes a big difference. That's something you don't really see, you don't get on, Etsy. You don't see the story behind it. You don't see kind of the glint in the eye when someone's telling you about, oh, this took me 7 hours to make, so.
Yeah, definitely. They can't see this process that you do, the whole mathematical process in the beginning, and seeing the sketching and that's just truly amazing. Truly amazing. It's beautiful. Your work is absolutely stunning and beautiful, and I'm going to go up to Shelburne Falls and check it out.
Yes, please do.
For sure. Let's see, any more comments? The art is math is a peak of expression. This is amazing work that he has created. Is your style influenced by someone or something? That's a good one.
Yeah, so the influence is definitely nature. I mean, I was an environmental science major at UMass. I'm really into geology, really into gemology. I mean, it's just kind of mind blowing that when you're picking up some of these stones, they're really old, they're really rare. Like the tanzanite crystal that I just showed in that pendant, it's mined in a very small spot in Tanzania. It's a mining area it's 4 miles by 1 mile. That's half the size of the Holyoke mountain range, just to kind of put that into perspective. Wow. It's the only place on the planet where this crystal can come from. And it formed 585 million years ago when Mount Kilimanjaro was being formed. So, you're holding a stone that's older than anything else that you've ever experienced, but some people just see it as a rock. But if you kind of can look at it, you're holding like a piece of the Earth's history. So being able to capture that beauty, put it into a piece of jewelry, and let someone kind of hear that, I think that's probably my biggest inspiration, is kind of just letting people know these aren't just rocks. These are very, very rare stones. And they're beautiful themselves, and I try to just accentuate that in a slight way. I'm not trying to create jewelry to overshadow that.
Oh no, definitely you don't overshadow. I think they just seamlessly go together. They complement each other so well. So well. We have a couple more comments. Let's see. Donna says, I will be looking at your Facebook page and I'm looking forward to a custom order. So there you go. You got a first customer here.
Definitely, definitely.
Jude says, which quarry do you like at Herkimer? I think about that point when we go hunting for rocks, we are seeing back in time something that no being has seen millennia, if ever. That's pretty cool.
Yes. So, hold on. What was that? What was the mine we went to? Oh, so the Herkimer Diamond Mine is the one that we found these stones at. And I want to go to Asa Diamonds. I want to go check out all of it. But speaking to the point that when you're mining in Herkimer, you're cracking a rock ledge that is harder than any stone you've ever come across. And you find a pocket and it's filled with mud and you scoop that mud out. You're the first person to ever touch this. This thing has never seen the light of day. It's never seen the atmosphere that we have. You're the first person to kind of scoop this mud out and grab this crystal. And it's kind of it's invigorating to know that. It's very humbling to be able to go mining and find this stuff yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Wayne says chill. He has chills. Julicy, it's strange to think of the crystals never having seen the light that makes them glitter. Oh, that's nice. Wow. That's so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. This has been
Thank you for letting me share this with you.
an amazing experience for me anyways. I hope everyone else as well. So if there's no other comments or questions, I think we're going to close this out.
Sounds good.
I'm just going to remove the spotlight. So thank you so much, Andrew, for sharing your process with us. And thank you everyone for attending today's session. Please remember to visit the Building Bridges website for updates and to register for the last 2 live sessions. Tomorrow at noon, we're going to have photography and writing with Michelle St. Martin. And then we close out the showcase with Sarah Jarman and myself. And our workshop is gel printing demystified, so stay tuned. Then we'll be followed by fireworks that have been recorded by Michelle St. Martin. I also encourage you to check out our virtual gallery, which showcases over 70 artists and makers. And while you're there, please make sure you show your support by signing the guest book. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you.